All right, we got everything set up. Let's make sure. Yep, we're good. We are good. All right, folks. Welcome to Dave Talks Ball in this September 16th, 2024 episode. Let's be honest, guys. We found out a lot this past weekend. We found out a lot of things, information, good data points this weekend, folks. Good and bad. Good and bad. First, the good. Let's start with the positive news. Alabama looks explosive as ever, athletic. Seems like a team that's building within their offense with this DeBoer, Nick Sheridan offensive system. They're running Jalen Milroe a lot more from a design standpoint than they were with Tommy Rees and Nick Saban last year. That's something that's phenomenal news. You saw the offensive line, Caden Proctor, Elijah Pritchett back. Offense looked a little different. You got to be excited about that. Explosive and athletic. LSU, playoff hopes still alive, folks. Playoff hopes still alive. They went and got it done. It wasn't pretty. It was even ugly at times. But when you had to get a stop, when you had to get a score, when you had to overcome a 17-0 deficit at Williams-Brice Stadium, one of the more underrated environments in the country, as a lot of people have said, when College game day's there, you take that. You take that, you give yourself a pat on the back, and hey, you still got a long season ahead of you. You're still in it. It'd have been trouble. You'd have been taking the road less traveled with a loss there, starting off 1-2-0 and winning the league. But Brian Kelly and them get it done. Hey, how about Texas A&M? How about Mike Elko in his first SEC road game ends the 2-year streak, going back to a trip to Columbia, Missouri in 2021 was the last time Texas A&M had won a road conference game until they did it in the Swamp. Mike Elko's going to have that as a notch on his belt at the end of the year, folks. If you can get to 8-4, and again, most likely this is going to be against a Florida team that's going to have a coaching change. So we got to factor that in. But still, you ended the streak, and that's all that really matters. Also, Arch Manning shows he can be a plug-and-play guy. I know it was UTSA. I know it was the Roadrunners. It's not your grandpa's Jeff Traylor. Your grandpa's Jeff Traylor's team. But a win nonetheless. Arch Manning looks very comfortable. He looks like he can go get some wins against – he could definitely steer the ship in the right direction for the Longhorns if Quinn Ewers can't go the next couple of weeks against ULM and Mississippi State heading to the bye week before the two big back-to-back matchups against Oklahoma in Red River and when they host the Georgia Bulldogs. Now to the bad. Speaking of the Mississippi State Bulldogs, bad football team, folks. Bad football team. Again, I'm not going to go all in on Jeff Lebby here. They've been beat up. It's the low-hanging fruit. I'm telling you, 2-10 may be real. 2-10 is a real win. I can't see them getting a conference win right now. That was rough. The 41-10 beat down by Toledo. And we'll talk about this a little bit. I said that was sneaky. Chris Phillips, who's here with us, the SEC Unfiltered channel, he went bold enough to predict it. I would have taken Toledo in the points. I didn't bet it, but I would have taken it. South Carolina, bad, can't hold a 17-0 lead at home. I know the refs had some questionable calls, some questionable rulings, not really calls, just the way the rules written. There were some rules in there you may not like, but that's how they're defined, folks. The refs are calling them as they see them. I see people like Josh Payton them going nuts. It's not on that specific official. It's the rules, folks. He was talking about the Tua Tagovailoa injury. Yeah, again, guys, it's a business. College football is a business. NFL's a business. They're going to protect the most important position on the field in all of sports. As you see it at times, the NFL can be an ugly game at times when there's bad quarterback play. And there's not 32 great quarterbacks in the NFL. That's why you see at the end of the year, some of these games are hard to watch. When quarterback plays bad in all levels of football, it's hard to watch. You don't get your casual fans. It gets the sickos like you and I, but it doesn't get your casual fan watching because the play isn't that good. They have to protect the product, which is the most important position in sport. And I always say, in all of sports, it's the quarterback position. But South Carolina not getting that done, that's tough. Looks like it's going to be officially over for Billy Napier in Gainesville. Tough spot for him. That's also bad. We'll discuss all these things, all these games, all the big games, go over some of the games as well. Tennessee, Kent State, we'll talk about that. Josh Heupel kicking onside kick when they're up 30 in the second half. I know. He told them going into it he was going to test it out just to get it on film. What else we can talk about? Slow slate. Some people said it was a slow slate this weekend. I don't necessarily really believe that. I started off the show. we found out a ton of information, folks. We have a ton of information to digest. We found out a lot about a certain team. We found out a lot about South Carolina, found out a lot about LSU, found out a lot about Texas A&M, found out a lot about Florida, found out a lot about Alabama. We found out a lot about everybody. We saw Kentucky can get off the map after getting their clocks clean last week at home against South Carolina. We found out a lot, folks. We will. We'll review the whole weekend, but it's Monday. You know what that means. I'm going to tell you where Dave was right, where he was wrong, myself, where I was right, where I was wrong. How important is Saturday's 2:30 slate kickoff for Hugh Freeze in Auburn when Arkansas comes to town? It's a massive game, folks. The loser, that's going to feel really bad. It's almost going to feel like 2 weeks ago when South Carolina came to Kentucky to Kroger Field, the loser was going to feel a certain way. I feel very similar to this. The winner still has all their goals and aspirations ahead of them. Loser is going to have to come out. They're going to have to work their way out of the hole. We'll go over some coordinators of the week and then money-making weekend review and then a look ahead to this upcoming weekend, folks. Again, I appreciate you listening. Dave Shoemate, your host here on Dave Talks Ball, longtime college football personnel director in the SEC and some other spots around college football. Glad to bring you this show, folks. We got some listeners in here early. We'll get to some questions here in just a minute. So let's just get to the week. Let's immediately just get to the weekend, folks. Starting with the big one, LSU, some way, somehow, getting the 36-33 win over the South Carolina Gamecocks. Again, I mentioned South Carolina spot. I shouldn't say spot. I hate using this word spot. South Carolina was up 17-0. They earned that lead, especially with the Beamer ball, blocked punts. Sloppy game across the board, though. I'll say this. I think if Lenore Sellers stays in the game, South Carolina wins this game. They do. I think it was one in the middle 8 by LSU when Lenore Sellers took that sack, rolled up on his ankle, and LSU holds him, goes up and cuts it to 8, gets the ball, again, gets stopped on 4th down to open up the half, but it set up field position. They pinned them back. South Carolina with Robbie Ashford really wasn't going to take any risk. You saw that. South Carolina on 3rd down, it was a killer. Even with Lenore Sellers, they were, 3 for 12? I think like 27.5% when I was looking at it this morning off the top of my head. Something like that. That's not going to get it done until South Carolina can get a consistent vertical passing game. And again, some of it not Dow Loggins' fault or anything like that because you're without your starting quarterback. A lot of teams aren't like Texas or I think maybe even Alabama with Ty Simpson where the backup quarterback could come in. And I even say that with Ty Simpson, the running dynamic wouldn't be as dynamic as it is with Jalen Milroe. I think in general, though, if South Carolina is going to get to the 6, 7, 8 win mark, which I still think they're in that 5, 6 range. Again, I think I'm in the minority of that. I think everybody's already kind of crowned South Carolina a 7, 8 win team. But pump the brakes, folks. South Carolina's going to have to generate an explosive passing game. They're going to have to distribute some kind of vertical passing game across the board here, folks. I mean, you just can't bank on a lot of misfits like LSU does defensively. That's an LSU spot right there in general, right there. I mean, passing right here, what is South Carolina? South Carolina threw for 155 yards, 11 for 21 interception. Again, Robbie Ashford was some of it, so context matters. But you can't bank on LSU not fitting their gaps or sealing the edge if they were. I mean, the Rocket Sanders where he got outside the edge and beat Whit Weeks again, not a good game for LSU linebacker Whit Weeks. That's disappointing. LSU's improved on defense, folks, but they could also give a score up from anywhere. They could give it up from the 1-yard line for a 99-yard rushing touchdown because they misfit their gap so bad. That's true. But give LSU and them credit. I didn't think Garrett Nussmeier played that great of a game, but he made plays when he had to. South Carolina's defense, again, Kyle Kennard had a hell of a game on the edge, but he also had 2 critical plays. He had the horse collar play that got called back on the pick 6 early in the game, and he had the blindside block on the interception that would have put the nail in the coffin too. So as impactful as he was, don't take that away from him in a positive way, it did impact this game. I mean, overall, it's a tough pill to swallow for South Carolina. You should easily be 3-0, 2-0 in league play. Where do you go from here? You get Akron this week, then you get 3 straight tough games against Ole Miss, at Alabama, and at Oklahoma. I think you probably need one of them. Will you? I don't know. How would that Oklahoma be? They get them in a good spot week after Red River against Texas. I don't see them beating Ole Miss or Alabama. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see that in the future for them right now. I still think they're in that 5-6 win category. I do. That A&M game at home is going to be big. But they may be looking back at the end of the season and be, man, there was our 6th win. If we could have just held on to a 17-0 lead against a reeling LSU team, when everything was going in our way. Game day was there. We had all the momentum, just couldn't get it done. For LSU, all your hopes, dreams, aspirations are still in front of you. You lost that, it's probably gone. You would have to run the table. Now you still get Ole Miss at home, Alabama at home. You do have some tough road trips at Arkansas and A&M and Oklahoma at the end of the year. We don't really feel like we know them. But LSU gets it done some way, somehow. Refs be damn. If you're South Carolina, I know there's some questionable calls. I've talked about it on our Sunday Fun Day with Chris and Cole. I'm not going into the whole referee stuff tonight, guys. I'm exhausted talking about it. You don't blow a 17-0 lead at the crib. It's that simple. You don't blow a 17-0 lead at the crib. That doesn't happen. You can blame the refs all you want. Again, did they have an impact on the game? Absolutely. Two things can be true at once. Do I like those rules? Do I think when a quarterback throws an interception and he's trying to engage to go make a tackle, I don't think he's a quarterback anymore. I don't think he's a quarterback anymore. He's a guy that should be blocked. Again, if they start if this starts to become consistently called and you got guys not blocking quarterbacks and they're going to go make game-saving tackles, people are going to have issues. Coaches are going to have issues with quarterbacks making game-saving tackles because guys are going to get penalized for that. That's going to be an issue. But again, that's the way the rule is written right now. You got to protect your most important investment, and that's the quarterback, because the game goes down a little bit when it's not good quarterback play. Go watch the NFL late in the year. I'm just telling you, it's what it is. It is what it is, folks. You can complain about the refs all you want, but it is what it is. LSU gets a massive road win. You felt like they needed it. It felt like the Missouri game from last year in 2023 all over again. They were down most of the game, somehow squeak it out. They did. It was almost like reliving history. But LSU, they got a good schedule coming up. They got UCLA this week, South Alabama bye week before they host the big one against Ole Miss. LSU had to have it. It was ugly at times. They're an undisciplined team. I don't really see a lot of strengths on this LSU team outside the two tackles and Will Campbell and Emory Jones. But outside of that, got to give them credit. You'll take a conference win in a raucous environment. You feel like you stole one. Maybe that springboard you for the rest of the year. Still feel like LSU's 8-4, 9-3. Still a lot of things to work on. But, man, give them credit. Massive win there. Going to the next one. Sorry, I should have put that banner up. I didn't even think about it for a minute. Well, we'll put it up there just for argument's sake right there. LSU survives Columbia, folks. You don't blow a 17-0 lead at home. There, I said it. Next, we're going to Madison, Wisconsin. Bama dominates in Madison, in the Mad City, at the former prison camp. That is Camp Randall, folks. What I really took from this, guys, is just kind of how creative Bama was offensively. How creative Bama was just from an offensive standpoint. I thought it was really impressive. I'll be completely honest with you. Jalen Milroe, 12 for 17, 196 yards, passing, 3 touchdowns. From a rushing standpoint, led him in rushing, 14 carries, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns. So 5 touchdowns in general. You like the way they're going to utilize Jalen Milroe in the run game. Now, can he hold up all year? Because last year you didn't see this. They almost made him feel like he was just a drop-back passer. Let's stay in the pocket. I feel like Nick Sheridan, the offensive coordinator, Kalen DeBoer are going to play to their personnel strengths. He's done that Kalen DeBoer's done that going back to his whole career when he had Jake Haener at Fresno State. Obviously, when he had Michael Penix, Jalen Polk, Rome Odunze, guys like that, they're going to sling it. They're utilizing Jalen Milroe's run game, the design in between the tackles run game, especially when you factor in Bama has probably the best interior group of offensive linemen, I think, in the league. I'm going to say, yeah, Parker Brailsford, who's playing a lot more physical than he did last year at Washington at center. You got Tyler Booker, who's probably the best offensive lineman they have across the board, at least the most versatile. And then you got Jaden Roberts on the right side. That's a good unit. I think Bama's going to have consistent success on the ground all year in that with Jalen Milroe. Also, how about Bama's receivers, dude? That is an explosive group. Ryan Williams. Again, if you didn't know, Ryan Williams, he's 17, folks. If you didn't know it, if Fox, Gus Johnson, Joel Klatt, if ESPN hadn't told you watching Bama this year that Ryan Williams is 17, I don't know what you've been doing. You must be deaf. But Ryan Williams, 4 receptions, a touchdown. Jeremy Bernard, the Washington transfer, 3 receptions, 55 yards, a touchdown. Josh Cuevas, the tight end, coming up big. He had a touchdown as well. Bama's fast, guys. You factor in Kendrick Law, Emmanuel Henderson. He had a big run as well. Bama is probably the most explosive, most athletic, fastest wide receiver group, I think, in the league. I didn't say fast. I said most athletic, fastest group across the board. This game, though, really, again, I don't think they ever would have won it anyways, Wisconsin. But once Tyler Van Dyke went out, and again, he's out for the season, so prayers up for him. and they had to put in Locke. When they had to put in Braden Locke, it went out the window. I mean, Locke finished 13 for 26, 125 yards and a touchdown. Once he went out, because, I mean, to be fair, Tyler Van Dyke started off 5 for 5, granted, for 16 yards. They were never winning this game because they can't keep up with Alabama on the outside. They can't generate explosive plays like Alabama. This game, they were never really in it, but it really went out the door early when Van Dyke went out. Bama's defense, still a little bit of a question mark. Actually, I mean, probably a little bit bigger than a question mark. Secondary, still letting people run free. They just haven't played anybody like Byron Brown from South Florida. Can't take advantage of it. Locke can't take advantage of it at Wisconsin. Carson Beck in 2 weeks will be able to take advantage of it. Brady Cook at times. Now, he's struggling with his deep ball in the touch. He'll miss at times with Luther Burden, but he can connect. Nico Iamaleava, he can connect. Garrett Nussmeier could connect. Bama better shore that up in the back end. And some of it's not their fault. They inherited a cornerback room, Maurice Lindquist did, and Kane Womack, with 6 scholarship corners and 3 of them are true freshmen. Nobody's really going to survive that, folks. So there's going to be some holes in that. Again, I like Bama's matchup against Georgia in 2 weeks more so than I like when they go to Neyland in 2 weeks. That's a bad matchup for Bama, I think. But anyway, specifically on this one, defense, I'll be interested with the Quay Russaw injury. Looked like he had an ankle and knee injury. Him being out, already a question mark, the edge guys, that could hurt. But again, Bama looks faster across the board. That's probably a compliment to Coach Ballou, the strength coach, across the board, offensively and defensively. I was impressed. Looked like some of Nick Saban's more dominant wins. That was an impressive first road win for Kalen DeBoer and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Offense looking like it's starting to settle in, especially when you factor in Caden Proctor and Elijah Pritchett were back full-time in this game compared to where they were not in South Florida. I do like Justice Haynes. I like Jam Miller. Again, I love Jalen Milroe in between the tackles in the run game, scheming that up. You saw Bama do it towards the end of the year last year in the SEC Championship and it had success. That's Jalen Milroe's success, guys. He's a run-the-football, short, deep guy. Intermediate ball's not there. It's not there. Probably won't be there. You'd see it incorporated. Defense, I think it's going to be bend but don't break. Be good in the red zone. When you start playing better quarterbacks, guys, people cannot be running free. They cannot be running free. Just telling you that. But Bama gets it done. Impressive first road win for Kalen DeBoer. Still have some things to work out. Have a big one in 2 weeks. Have a big one in 2 weeks, Brian Denny. Hell, Donald Trump said he's going to be there. So we got everybody. We got presidential candidates rolling into that game, folks. We got a lot of people coming to that game. Next, the Missouri Tigers get tested by the fight. And speaking of Alabama, the former OC from the Crimson Tide, Bill O'Brien, folks, and Thomas Castellanos, who I signed my last year in college football at UCF from Ware County, Georgia. Athletic quarterback. Florida State wanted to play corner. Want to play quarterback. We gave him a shot. Story for another day. Bill O'Brien's done a really good job developing him, folks. I know he didn't have the greatest game on Saturday. He really didn't. But again, Boston College got after him pretty quick. 14-0 right off the bat. Missouri, to be fair, this is that game that they were holding some people out leading up to this game against Murray State, and then in their second matchup as well against Buffalo and Pete Limbo and them. This was their first time they had everybody playing. You could tell it was the first time they were kind of working out kinks. And it was just kind of a sluggish game, a lot of penalties. Brady Cook was a little inconsistent. Everybody was just kind of all over the place. It's really what it was. Everybody was kind of just all over the place. Brady Cook finished 21 for 30, 264 yards and a touchdown. Still left some meat on the bone. Could hit some balls at the third level. I do a positive here, though, is offensive. I like the combo of Nate Noel and Marcus Carroll. It's just an overall group better than I like just the individual Cody Schrader that they had last year, who led the SEC in rushing. That's no offense to Cody Schrader. I'm just taking the quantity over quality. Cody Schrader was a good running back, but I think you got 2 really good ones. I love how Nate Noel, his ability to get yards after initial contact, he runs through defenders. I love it. Marcus Carroll brings another dynamic as well. But Nate Noel, 22 carries, 122 yards rushing, averaging 5.5 yards a pop. Didn't record a touchdown, but still. Luther Burden, another big day, over 117 yards. Defensively, Corey Batoon in that group held Thomas Castellanos in check. 16 for 28, 249. Did have 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. But didn't let Thomas Castellanos beat you with his legs. Only 32 yards rushing, 0 touchdowns on 13 carries. I thought guys like Corey Flagg did a good job keeping an eye on him, spying him. Did a really good job. Missouri, you'll take this as you go. Again, this is the first time you really had your whole team. You could tell it looked like a first game. Again, Murray State, Buffalo aren't really going to test Eli Drinkwitz in this crew. This is a top 25 win. Boston College came in undefeated. Again, the Florida State win doesn't look as great now with them being 0-3, and I forget who they played in week 2. But again, does Boston College probably end up a top 25 team at the end of the year? No. But again, it's a phenomenal job developing this team by Bill O'Brien. Thomas Castellanos looks like a totally different player. But good win for Missouri at home. As you get into conference play this week against Vanderbilt, you take it. Good thing for Eli Drinkwitz, you get a top 25 win, but you can always go show your team, hey, we got a lot of stuff to work on. Because again, that schedule looked like they were going to cakewalk into Kyle Field in 2 weeks, and they still may. They probably will. Odds are they will beat Vanderbilt at home, and they go to Kyle Field undefeated. But those first 4 games were a little tougher when Boston College and Vandy, even though Vanderbilt lost to Georgia State, they're better than we all thought they were. Give them credit, and also give Eli Drinkwitz and his Missouri Tiger defense credit for getting a big dub at home, top 25 win. Next, Texas A&M, folks, ends the streak. Let's give a little golf clap. Let's give a little golf clap here for Mike Elko and the boys. Again, this may not mean anything at the end of the year because Billy Napier is gone. I'm not going to say if anymore. He's gone. We're not going to do the company line here, sugarcoating it. Billy Napier's gone. It's a matter of if, not when now, folks. Now, to my point, this is going to be a notch on Mike Elko's belt. He ended this streak. The last time A&M heading into this game had an SEC road win was with Jimbo Fisher back in 2021 in Columbia, Missouri. He ended that in his first SEC road game. That's massive. You get to 8 wins. I don't care if you beat Texas. If you go 8-4, lose to Texas, you can hold this up. Hey, I know Florida's head coach isn't there anymore. We beat a bad Florida team, but we ended the streak. My first opportunity I got. That's something you can hold on. Story of the game, obviously, Marcel Reed, folks. I talked to people at A&M. They thought Connor Wigman was going to play. He woke up in the morning very sore. Marcel Reed was getting some reps during the week with Colin Klein. I'll be honest with you. I think he fits that system better. I do. I hate people losing jobs to injury, but I think he just fits it better. 11 for 17, 178, 2 touchdowns, rushing wise, 13 carries, 84 yards, and a touchdown as well. So 3 touchdowns. And my favorite part, 0 turnovers, folks. 0 turnovers. I love it. 0 turnovers. I think he fits Colin Klein's system better than Connor Wigman. Now, does this mean he has a higher upside or a better overall quarterback than Connor Wigman? No. I think 2 things can be true at once. Connor Wigman has the higher upside. I think he could have success on a lot of offenses. He's got a lot of arm talent, a lot of hand talent, just raw ability, can throw out of different arm slots. I just don't think he fits this Colin Klein system. And I said that when this was hired, that it's like, this doesn't really seem like a good fit because Colin Klein always had guys he liked to run in between the tackles. Skylar Thompson, who's in the NFL, Will Howard, who's now at Ohio State, and Colin Klein himself, who was a Heisman Trophy finalist at K-State in 2012. He was a runner in between the tackles for Bill Snyder. That's just in his DNA. That's not in Connor Wigman's DNA. That's more so in Marcel Reed's DNA. 2 things can be true at once. Marcel Reed, I think, is the quarterback for this system in 2024. Does it make him a better overall quarterback than Connor Wigman? No, it does not. But I think he fits this system better. Again, Mike Elko didn't really tip anything today who he is rolling with. They do play Bowling Green this week. Sneaky matchup. You don't want to go sleep into this one because Bowling Green took Penn State to the limit 2 weeks ago. A&M overall, just a dominant performance. I mean, they controlled time of possession across the board, really did what they wanted. And this is a weird game. Delays, torrential downpour. Again, they just really did whatever they want. For Florida, woo! Where do you go from here? I hated the quarterback rotation between Graham Mertz and DJ Lightweight. Just go with one guy, man. Just go with one guy. They can't get off the field. Poor tackling. A&M just dominates up front. The Maroon Goons. I mean, A&M rushed for 313 yards, 5.6 yards per carry. Le'Veon Moss went off 110 yards. But the story is Florida can't stop the run. Florida cannot stop the run, guys. Just getting bullied. Another ugly performance at home against another Power 4 team where you just get humiliated. I mean, Florida defensively with Ron Roberts and Austin Armstrong are making quarterbacks come in and look like Heisman Trophy candidates. Again, what Marcel Reed did was nothing compared to what Cam Ward did, but it was an efficient style with 0 turnovers and 3 touchdowns, 2 through the air, 1 on the ground. Where does Florida go from here? They go to Starkville this week where magically they're 6-point favorites in Starkville this week. That's more of a slap in the face to how bad Mississippi State is right now, or how bad at least Vegas thinks Mississippi State is right now. Which is wild. Is that not wild? Florida's favored by 6. I wouldn't touch that game with your money. You could give me your money. I would not touch that game. But But Florida really nothing to build off of, dude. You just got in a hole again right off the bat, 10-0. A&M, who did nothing against Notre Dame's offense 2 weeks ago, just goes up and down the field, dominates the line of scrimmage against you. Again, I think A&M looks more improved, but at the same time, a lot of this Florida didn't help themselves either. Just poor tackling. I thought the way they managed the quarterback situation was really bad, just rotating. There's no flow. It's not good in Gainesville, folks. It's not good, and it's time. It's time. You got to get it rolling. I don't want to go into any coaching candidates because we're in the middle of football season, guys. I love football, love talking football, X's and O's, personnel. I want to talk about that stuff. I mean, we do have to talk about this. When is this possibly going to be over for Billy Napier? If I had to guess, you lose to Mississippi State this week. Yeah, he probably doesn't have a job next week. It could end against UCF, though. It could end against UCF, which I believe is next week, right? Isn't it? Yeah. No, 2 weeks. 2 weeks. So you got Florida. Florida gets Mississippi State this week. Then what is it, a bye? Yeah, a bye. They get to sit there for 2 weeks and hear how bad they are for 2 weeks. That makes it even worse. Then if you go lose to UCF at home, that's it. Again, now if you lose to Mississippi State, he's going to get fired next Sunday because it's the perfect timing to go into a bye week. Now, people may ask, what is the benefit of firing him mid-season? You're essentially just paying him to go home and sit and make his $27 million. It's true. It's true. I'm with you. If you lose Mississippi State, he needs to be gone because then that's just the cancer spreading. Nothing positive, no positive momentum within the program. If you lose to UCF at home, I think it's probably over. Fired Sunday before you go to Knoxville the next week against Tennessee as well. I think if he beats Mississippi State, beats UCF, which right now I think UCF would beat them. UCF just went on the road and won at TCU yesterday or on Saturday. If he can get through UCF, though, why not just finish the season at that point? You got Tennessee, Kentucky, then the November stretch of Georgia, at Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and then at Florida State. That's anyone's game. I don't know why you really wouldn't kind of stick there. Again, I don't know when. If you lose this week, all I know for certain is if you lose this week, you're gone because it'll go right into a bye week. If you lose to UCF, which would make it back-to-back losses to UCF going back to the 2021 Gasparilla Bowl, he's gone. Anything after that, they may give him through the rest of the season just to maybe try to keep something. But the fear is, does he get it back right? I don't think so. But again, awful game. A&M ends the streak. Awful game for Florida. Awesome game for A&M. Feel like they're probably – again, A&M was never in doubt of missing a bowl game. But that essentially hammered home you're making a bowl game in year one for Mike Elko, and that matters. And you ended the SEC road losing streak that you needed to get rid of. Does not need to go at Texas A&M University 2 years without winning a road conference game. You took care of that. On to the grave, baby. One of our most faithful listeners. I appreciate you listening. He says UCF is a top contender for the Big 12 as of right now. Don't count them out. Oh, I'm not. Right now, I would pick UCF to beat Florida. I mean, you know how much preparation Gus Malzahn put into that? That'll be their Super Bowl. That'll be their fan base's Super Bowl. There'll be a ton of black and gold in that stadium. So, end it there. Moving on to the next one. Georgia survives in Lexington, folks. Literally survive. This wasn't your typical, and I was the one going into the week. Georgia, Kentucky is usually death, taxes, and Georgia, Kentucky being a pretty ugly, sloppy football game is usually it. But this was different. Georgia was terrible in the red zone. Didn't really get there a lot. Only cashed in twice. And for lack of a better term, you're pretty much dominated. Georgia looked soft, I could probably say, for the first time since Kirby Smart's probably first year in 2016. They looked soft. They really did. They looked soft. And I get it. Michael Williams, they had some defensive guys out. Michael Williams was out. Warren Brinson was out. Who was it? It went down with a quick injury real fast. Who am I missing for Georgia? Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins came up. That's who it was. He went down, came back in. But again, man, like you just were looking at it. I mean, total offense. Kentucky looked lifeless offensively against South Carolina. And they even did at times on Saturday against Georgia. They outgained Georgia. They had 284 yards to Georgia's 262. And yards is one of the more overrated things in the entire country. This is one of the more overrated stats in the entire country. Like just yards total and stuff like that. 100%. Kentucky had 73 plays to Georgia's 54. Georgia had 9 penalties. Not good. Not good. Kentucky rushed for 170 yards. They controlled the line of scrimmage. They came out a half with a 6-minute drive. They were just running it down Georgia's throat. Georgia looked soft. They did. They have issues. They're banged up. Again, I was told through people close to the program, they had the most physical fall camp they've had since Kirby's probably been there. I think that's lingering early. Now they get into a bye week before they go to Tuscaloosa, trying to get Hill. They lost Tate Ratledge. I think he came out, had to get carted off. He'll be out against Bama for sure. I think they're maybe hoping to get him before they head to Jacksonville to play Florida. But they're banged up. I think Kirby's banking, hey, let's have a physical practice because it could be a 16, 17 game season with the playoff extension. We need to start building some depth. We can't be just holding hands, handing this. And again, I don't know if this is your typical Georgia team this year. This team has major holes. It's isn't just a Georgia overlook Kentucky. Part of that probably is when they turned on the film because Kentucky wasn't very impressive against South Carolina. It was honestly embarrassing. Probably one of the worst losses in Mark Stoops' history. I mean, offensively, they gave up 11 TFLs against South Carolina, tackles for losses, and 5 sacks. It wasn't good. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say about this one. There's no sugarcoating, hey, you look past it, your typical Georgia, Kentucky. No, Georgia legitimately could have lost this game. Now, if I'm Kentucky, I'm a little pissed off at Mark Stoops for not going on it for 4th and 8 at the end. Again, Brock Vandagriff, not a phenomenal quarterback. He's really not. Good kid, offensive line, improved. But you got to have your best 3rd and 8, 4th and 8 call to go. I know it's 4th and 8, but it's not 4th and 15. If it's 4th and 15, you punt. And he said, he was asked post-game, well, why'd you go for it? Or why didn't you go for it? He said, well, we just held them 3 and out the previous series before, so I thought we could maybe do the same thing. And they did get the ball back with like 30 seconds and no timeout, though, with a limited passing game in Brock Vandagriff. So you're setting yourself up for failure. George, if you're Kentucky, you're a 24-point dog coming off what you did last week against South Carolina, you have nothing to lose. Why would you have not gone for that? If you don't get it, you're giving it up at like the 50. Who cares? You go for that, man. Scared money doesn't make money. I get Mark Stoops' reaction. You go for that. You go for that. I don't understand how you don't. I really don't understand. If I was a Kentucky fan, I love the performance. I love the effort. We got off the mat after getting knocked out against a team we can't beat in South Carolina. They've beaten us 3 times in a row. But you know what? Georgia, the number 1 team in the country, who no longer is the number 1 team in the country, that's the University of Texas, came into your house and we held our own and could have won the football game. The closest they played Georgia in the Mark Stoops tenure going back to 2013. But you left some meat on the bone, and I say that all the time, but you got to go for that 4th and 8, Mark Stoops. You had him on the ropes. You had a chance. But if you're Georgia, Kirby Smart, I mean, yeah, Kirby Smart's got some ammo. Again, like, hey, we didn't play well. It's a road SEC win, tough place to play. Got a lot of things we need to improve on, but a lot of it's injuries, nitpicky stuff that they're beat up. They're beat up right now. And again, probably helping Georgia get knocked out of the number 1 spot for Texas is going to help have some motivation. But Georgia was going to be motivated heading to Tuscaloosa next week anyways. Kirby's 1-5 against Alabama. The program of Georgia's 1-5 since Kirby Smart's been there, and they've been a national title contender every year. They can't beat Alabama, it seems. They're going to be motivated, and that is not going to be the Georgia team you saw 2 nights ago in Lexington at Kroger Field. That's not going to be the same team that shows up in Tuscaloosa. I can promise you that. I can promise you Georgia's going to play well. They're going to want that game. They're going to have that chip on their shoulder. 2 things can be true at once. Georgia didn't play good at all against Kentucky. Would have lost to a lot of teams the other night. I worry if they have a real weapon on the outside at receiver. Dylan Black, fine player. Dominic Lovett, he's a fine player. They miss Ra Thomas. Not saying they shouldn't have kicked him off. You hit a woman, you should be off the team. I'm just saying they miss him. Lawson Lucky. And again, I don't think anybody thought they were going to replace Brock Bowers or Ladd McConkey, but they used to own the middle of the field. I don't know if they have anybody who can go in the middle of the field this year. Their best offensive weapons probably Trevor Etienne and Nate Frazier right now. Let's be honest. Again, Georgia's weapons don't really scare me right now. They don't have the McConkey, Bowers, middle of the field. We're going to go whip your butt across the field, bring that tight end down. We're going to have to worry about 2 different guys coming down here to cover Brock Bowers. And that opens up more one-on-one matchups from the outside. They just kind of have a group of guys. And again, I thought Ra Thomas could be that guy who wins vertically one-on-one. But Georgia gets the win. Georgia gets the 13-12. One of the more uglier wins in the Kirby Smart era. But again, you'd rather have an ugly win than a pretty loss, folks. So Georgia heading into the bye week 3-0 before they head to Tuscaloosa for the big showdown in 2 weeks. Lou Dog, appreciate you watching, brother. He says, Kirby says there's no respect in winning a game on the road in the SEC. I mean, Yeah, I'm with you. You take that. It's not easy to win in college football at home. It's definitely not easy to go win on the road in the SEC. So you give yourself a pat on the back. You survived. You made plays when you had to. You picked up some first downs to take away some clock, give Kentucky the ball back with 35 seconds with a limited passing game. You're going to win that game. But again, you got a lot of things to work on, and a lot of that's in the training room. You're beat up. You're beat to shit right now. You got to get that figured out. You got to get that figured out. But let's go to the rest of the league quickly. Just the rest of the league around. Oh, let's pull up the schedule. Oh, there we go. All right, rest of the league, just chronological order here, guys. We hit those two games. Texas A&M. Tulane, Oklahoma getting the 34-19 win over Tulane. This game, Oklahoma jumped out early and then let Tulane kind of get back into this game a little bit late, but Oklahoma made some plays when they had to. The story was Jackson Arnold's legs. Defense making plays, Billy Bowman getting an interception. Again, you just want to win this game before you go into the biggest game at your home stadium in a long time with your former national championship winning quarterback coming this weekend against Oklahoma. It is what it is. You take this win as it is. Tulane's a good group of five team. They've had two tough losses back-to-back against K-State and against Oklahoma this week. But I knew that'd be a tough physical game. But again, I thought Tulane may be a little bit wore out. As you saw, they didn't come out with the same energy as they had against K-State the week before. Because again, a program like Tulane doesn't have the top 40, top 45 players that teams like Oklahoma and K-State have. Again, it's tough to go play those games back-to-back against teams like K-State and Oklahoma. Oklahoma handles business. Again, have some front issues. This game this week's going to come down to Jackson Arnold. That's just what it's going to come down to. I'm fired up for the chess match of Brent Venables, Zach Alley, the defensive coordinator for Oklahoma versus the Josh Heupel offense. It's going to be a ruckus environment. I think it's going to be a close game. We'll talk about this one on Thursday, but it's one of the more excited I am about any conference games as we head into the season. But again, Oklahoma gets the 34-19 win. Arkansas gets the 37-27 win over UAB. Not a pretty game for Arkansas. Heard the grapevine. Their defensive coordinator. I don't know how much they really prepared for this game. And I hate saying that, but the defensive coordinator Travis Williams had his fourth kid this past week. Wasn't at practice. Only came to practice. Wasn't really a lot of scheming going on with the defensive staff. I think they probably took UAB for granted, coming off an emotional loss at Oklahoma State. You got your SEC opener this week against Auburn. Total hangover. Look-ahead game, and UAB rolled in 0-2 against you. Just got whipped against ULM. Doesn't give you any passing. Taylor Green wasn't good. The play calling wasn't good. It wasn't good across the board for Arkansas. The preparation's got to be better. 247 beat writer, I was listening to him. Trey Biddy mentioned it. He's like, when I was interviewing the defensive players this week, I was asking him what personnel-wise, who kind of stands out to UAB, what are they running, and nobody had really any answers. And he was like, man, I don't know if they're really taking this game that serious. It showed. I mean, they got down early. They were down a lot in the first half. It was an ugly game. But again, these type of games, I don't really hold against teams this year. Like Akron against South Carolina this week, I'm not going to hold because they're coming off a tough loss. They got Ole Miss coming to town the next week. Good or bad, I don't really hold those games against people. But Arkansas survives. They got a massive one at Jordan-Hare this week. Ole Miss gets the 40-6 win over Wake Forest on the road. Ole Miss controlled this game so much, Wake Forest decided to cancel next year's game. All jokes kidding. They canceled it before, but Lane Kiffin mentioned it. I thought Ole Miss would be a little bit more explosive in the offensive passing game, in my opinion. I thought they would try to go for the throat a little bit more. I mean, I lost this one of my bets. I thought Ole Miss over 42.5 offensive points would be something they would pass. But Jackson Dart, 377 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Henry Parrish still doing his thing. How about Walter Nolan? Has anybody seen that clip? If you go back and watch the game, him just dominating, just the lower body explosiveness of this kid. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like they dominating, just pure domination across the board. Ole Miss's defense, folks, I'm telling you, we'll talk a little Ole Miss defense when I talk about the coordinators of the week. Pete Golden's going to get a little bit of a shout out, just a little bit of a teaser. Ole Miss first road game against a not good Wake Forest team, let's be honest. First time Ole Miss is going to be tested. They get Georgia Southern at home this year. Hell Southern. But when they go to Columbia next week, when they play at Williams-Brice Stadium, that'll be interesting because South Carolina is going to be looking to try to seek revenge from the loss against LSU last week. It'll be a tough environment. First road SEC game. Again, though, Ole Miss got a lot of playmakers, a lot of depth on both sides of the ball. Even the kicker, Caden Davis, is a beast. But again, Ole Miss tested a little. Not really. The game was never really in doubt. But Ole Miss gets the 40-6 win. Vanderbilt drops it, guys. Last possession. Georgia State went down. Jim Chaney and the boys went down with ease. Christian Velo went down, knocked off Diego Pavia and the boys. Georgia State getting the 36-32 win. We mentioned it in the preview this past week. This is a sleepy game for Vanderbilt, looking ahead to Missouri. Again, I don't know if they were looking ahead. Just as a tough spot to be in. Tough spot to be in from a game standpoint. You hate it. You wanted the undefeated matchup this week in Como, SEC opener. But again, teams like Vanderbilt, they can't overlook anybody. And this was my concern here. Pavia still 270 through the air, 2 touchdowns. Not a bad day. I mean, overall, this is going to happen at Vanderbilt. But if you're Clark Lee, you would have liked to sweep your non-con and maybe give a chance to go win 2 SEC games, get to 6. I thought 5 would be realistic. Disappointing loss here. How do you bounce back on the road to go to Como in a game that you were probably like, hey, we're undefeated rolling into this puppy? But nope, that Ted, the former Turner Field where the Braves play, where they played this game, Georgia State. Dell McGee, former Georgia running back coach since 2016 with Kirby, got the best of Vanderbilt. Got the best of the Doors, but Georgia State getting the 36-32 win over the Doors. Texas getting the 56-7 win over UTSA. Story was Arch Manning. Arch Manning, dude, 223 through the air, 4 touchdowns, had the big run as well on the backside of the read. There's not a quarterback controversy, guys. I'm just telling you. I think Arch brings a different dynamic than Quinn Ewers and probably has an overall better upside than Quinn Ewers. But again, Steve Sarkisian mentioned he doesn't like to run his quarterback. So I don't know how much dynamic that is outside of improvision. I do think Arch could get them through the next 2 against ULM this week and against Mississippi State next week in the SEC opener. I think you have a bye. You wouldn't want to roll with Arch in his first game against Brent Venables and them in the Cotton Bowl, and then obviously with Georgia and Glenn Schumann and Kirby Smart. You wouldn't want to put him in that situation. What do you got? Quinn Ewers has a strained oblique, strained abdomen muscle. We'll see. I mean, I expect him to at least be back for Red River. That's in 3 weeks. He should be able to recover from that. But again, it's a twisting motion, and he uses a lot of that lower body torque to get that. So that could impact Quinn Ewers. And again, he has a history, guys, of having lingering injuries. He's never made it through a whole season. I mean, he got hurt against Alabama 2 years ago in 2022. Last year was out a little bit. We saw Malik Murphy against K-State, who's now at Duke. And then obviously we see him get hurt against UTSA and Texas. But outside of that, I mean, Jarrett Gibson, another true freshman, rushed for 75 yards. Ryan Wingo had big plays, 3 receptions, 127 yards and a touchdown. Texas, just like Ole Miss and Tennessee, one of the 3 teams who have looked dominant and handled business. The only teams that have not shown some warts out of the other 13 teams in the league, I would say. You tell me in the chat, guys. Anybody else I'm missing? It's Tennessee, Texas, and Ole Miss that have all looked really good. Gregory Nimsek, appreciate you listening, man. He says, Boomer Sooner, Dave. Yeah, I don't know if you're going to the game, Gregory. I'm a little jealous of you. But the SEC Unfiltered Tour, we will be at Jordan-Hare at Auburn for the Auburn-Arkansas game, which I think almost feels like a little bit of a loser leave town elimination chamber type game from WWE. This Tennessee-Oklahoma game feels like a month-long WWE Raw WrestleMania. Like, hey, we're teasing this stuff. Kind of like with The Rock last year when he was facing, who was it? Cody Rhodes. Kind of felt like that. Like, you got the former quarterback coming back, facing his old team. A lot of bad blood. Bob Stoops, his former head coach, fired him 10 years ago, really for no reason, to save his brothers. Kind of some bad blood here. I'm fired up about this. I'm fired up about this game. But again, really appreciate you listening there, Greg. But back to it. I mean, Texas gets the win. There's really not much to say. There's not a quarterback competition, guys. You just have probably the best quarterback room. Not probably. You have the best quarterback room in college football. But again, Texas gets the 56-7 win. Chris Phillips straight up called this one, folks. He straight up called this one, and I would have taken the points too, but Toledo does whatever the hell they want against Mississippi State and gets the 41-17 win. And this game was never close. It was 21-3 at one point, 28-3 at one point. The defense, I told you, I think the downfall for Jeff Lebby, at least in year one, and they're probably going to keep him for contract purposes, is you hired Coleman Hutzler as your defense coordinator. You know why? Because CAA, Jimmy Sexton's agency, got Jeff Lebby of the Mississippi State job, and they said, you know what, Jeff? You owe us. We got you your first head coaching job. We're going to tell you who to hire as your coordinator. Oh, you know him because you worked at Ole Miss. Coleman Hutzler's not a good defensive coordinator, folks. I hate saying that. Go ask Will Anderson and Dallas Turner, who he was their position coach at Alabama the last 2 years. They don't have phenomenal things to say about him. He's running a 3-man front. It's just getting penetrated. I mean, The Scatteraboo kid for Arizona State ran for 275 yards on that soft box consistently. I think Arizona State, Kenny Dillingham were shocked at how open that was. And then Toledo and Jason Candle then did whatever they want. This was a bad loss, guys. Mississippi State is staring at 2-10 right in the face. They are staring at 2-10 right in the face. There's no way they win a conference game. There's no way. Definitely not a road conference game. You see the road conference schedule? Toughest in the league. At Texas, at Tennessee, at Ole Miss, and at Georgia. They're not going to 2-10. I think you needed to get to 5 this year, Lebs. I think you did. Who we got here? Gregory says he's fired up. We're looking forward to it. Chick Nuke Seedery, Sunflower Seeds, says go Seeds. Also tweeted, we know Oklahoma introduction is this weekend based on quality opponent. What conference game will introduce Texas? Definitely Georgia. I don't think the Mississippi State one next week moves the needle from that perspective. Definitely a Georgia one. And also, too, that Formula One racing is in town as well. That'd be a massive weekend just in the city of Austin. But to answer your question there, Chinook, Cedar, Sunflower, that would be for Texas, I would say. Richard Shear, appreciate you watching. He says they're going to make Florida look good this week. Yeah, Florida's a 6-point favorite. I wouldn't touch that with your money, Richard. I wouldn't touch that game with your money. There's no telling what's going to happen in that game. I mean, it gets us kicked off. It's the early game, 12 Eastern, 11 a.m. on ESPN. Woo! I don't know what's going to happen in that game, guys. I really don't. We don't even want to try to – I mean, I'll predict it on Thursday's show, but, man, I wouldn't be touching any points. Again, Richard, you can have that one, buddy. Don't be donating it to my fund. I'm not going to bet it. But a couple more games just to quickly browse over. Toledo, man, what a bad loss, Mississippi State. The Hank Brown Show and the 45-19 win over New Mexico. This game was closer than people thought. Hank Brown, 235 yards, 4 touchdowns. Ultimately ended up, though, his full stat line is, I'm bringing it up right here for you. Individual, he was 17 for 25, 235, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I know a lot of people think this fixes their issue at Auburn. It doesn't, because Auburn can't protect right now. Dylan Wade's struggling. The other side of the right side of the offensive line struggling as well. You know what Hank Brown can't do? He can't maneuver. He can't maneuver in the pocket. He's a statue. And Hugh Freeze's offense is best. But not when he has a running quarterback, but when he has a quarterback who can get outside the pocket. Go look at Bo Wallace. Go look at Chad Kelly. When those guys can get outside, get it out quick. Hank Brown has to have protection to make throws. He does. And I think this week you have Travis Williams, former Auburn linebacker, sat right next to Carlos Dansby on that 2004 team, coached at Auburn with Gus Malzahn from 16 to 20. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder to go beat his alma mater, and he likes to blitz a lot, folks. I think Sam Pittman said it at SEC Media Days. I think they were in cover 0 last year, meaning they had no safety help, nobody on the back end. They were bringing the house. About 60 times last year. They're going to bring a lot of A-gap pressure, try to get Hank Brown uncomfortable, throwing off uneven platforms, throwing off his back foot. I think that's real. That could possibly happen. I'm leaning Arkansas right now, folks. I think the wrong team's favored in that game. I know Arkansas's getting 4 at Auburn. I mean, I've seen more impressive stuff with Arkansas in a loss against Oklahoma State than I've seen so far with Auburn. Defense wasn't good. New Mexico was putting yards up against them. Hugh says he's rolling with Hank Brown again, and I get that, but I don't really know how much better Hank Brown is than Peyton Thorne, because Peyton Thorne can at least make you dynamic in the run game. You're dealing with 2 bad quarterbacks here. It's like 1F, 2F instead of 1A, 1B. It's bad, or I should say 1Z, 2Z. It's bad across the board. I like Arkansas this week, folks. I'm telling you. I was not impressed watching the New Mexico game. Yeah, he made the easy throws, the simpler ones. It's New Mexico, though, guys. I like Brock Mendenhall as a coach, the former Virginia coach, but that was a bad defense. New Mexico was 0-2 rolling in. They're now 0-3. They got diverted plane-wise from Montgomery and had to go fly into Mobile and bus up to Auburn. Again, I know it was a torrential downpour, tough to throw as well. Auburn putting a lot of balls on the ground. They're getting back, similar to South Carolina. People forget about that with South Carolina. They've been putting balls on the ground a lot these first 3 weeks and been lucky and fortunate to get them back. Auburn's been the same. I'm telling you, I like Arkansas this week, folks. I do. I like Arkansas in this game. Greg, Dave, what's your thoughts on USC? Hold on, let's go up a little bit. Yeah, as we posted on here, SEC Unfiltered, guys. Appreciate y'all listening. There's 607 of you in here right now. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell to get the notifications. Again, guys, you got life going on. You got to take care of kids. You got your job. Guys, hit that notification bell so we can notify you when we go live and you don't miss this. Also, This episode, before we get really rolling here, is presented by MyBookie. Go to mybookie.ag and use code SECU at signup to receive a special welcome offer on your first deposit. Again, Richard, you can go bet that Mississippi State Florida game, giving Mississippi State 6 at home against a Florida team that's essentially coachless. You can bet that, but if you do, go to our buddies at mybookie.ag and use code SECU at sign up to receive a special welcome offer on your first deposit. Again, don't encourage that game, but go use our buddies over to bet, guys. What do we got? We got a couple more as well. One more game to get to. The Tennessee one, really not. This was the biggest line, and they covered it at the half. Tennessee against Kent State across the board here. Tennessee getting the 71-0 win over Kent State, and they were up 50 at half. And Josh Heupel kicking an onside kick in the first quarter, up 30. Again, apparently he told Cole Kublik pregame, I think he told Kent State, who was 0-2 and lost to St. Francis College the week before, that they were going to kick it onside. So they gave him a heads up. It wasn't as bad as I thought, but still, why are you kicking an onside kick up 30? You probably get a better look in your practice than you could against Kent State. Again, not your Nick Saban's golden flashes here, but rocking. It's just a tough game. Again, Tennessee, I think one of 3 teams that have just taken care of business all year, like Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Texas. Let's go back to the comments here before we get into where I was right, where I was wrong. Richard, he says he agrees with my my Arkansas pick. Taylor Green is way more electric than Hank Brown. Yeah, it's going to come down to turnovers. Whoever has the biggest turnovers, I trust Taylor Green a little more. He's got the high ceiling, higher floor. Hank Brown just kind of is what it is, man. I just didn't see a guy who could maneuver in the pocket, and I know Travis Williams really well. I worked with him at Auburn, worked with him at UCF as his first-time coordinator. He likes to bring pressure. He's probably salivating with the way Auburn's protecting up front and Hank Brown's inability to move. Chinook Seedery Sunflower Seeds, is this Napier's last opportunity? Last opportunity for what? To put on the gator head on his polo or on his over his head? It's over. He's going to be gone. It's not a matter of if, it's when. Yeah, if he loses this, he's probably fired on Sunday heading into the bye week. I think it's either this week if they lose, or if he loses at home to UCF and then the Sunday before they go to Tennessee. That's probably when he gets fired. After that, they may just let him roll throughout the year. And if he gets through Mississippi State and UCF, I probably agree with that, just to maybe keep the roster a little going. Again, I don't think they're going to turn it around. So it is what it is. I don't really think he has a last opportunity. I think it is over. But I appreciate you listening there, Chinook. Richard, how do you feel about the Missouri game? Missouri Vanderbilt? Which Missouri game? Ons the Gray, 7 p.m. to 11 a.m. daily. My guy, Oklahoma blue collar trash. Right. Appreciate you listening. Richard, I'm not betting that game, but I'm Arkansas upsetting Auburn. I do too. A little spoil. If you want to go check out our preview on the SEC Unfiltered channel on YouTube, we've previewed that. Myself and Chris Phillips. We also have the Tennessee-Oklahoma preview up as well, and the Florida-Mississippi State preview as well. I didn't do that when I did both Oklahoma and Tennessee, and I did Arkansas-Auburn. I didn't do Florida-Mississippi State, but it's good. It's Chris and Cole. I encourage you to go listen. Richard, you got to love Heupel. You're right. Heupel's got them on that fringe of – they're going to be a consistent playoff team. Defense is better this year. Gregory Nibbit, heads up, Dave. Oklahoma's getting some key pieces back for Saturday night's football game. You're right. It felt like the last few weeks they've only had Deion Burks. They've been missing, 4 of their top 5 guys outside of Burks. They need some guys back on the offensive line. That's got to get going. The key in that game is going to be Jackson Arnold. It is. If he plays good, Oklahoma's going to have a shot. If he doesn't, there's no way they win. He's going to have some help as well, but it's going to come down to Jackson Arnold. We'll keep getting to the comments. Let's go to where Dave was right, where he was wrong, where I was right, where I was wrong, folks. Let's get to it. Where I was wrong, let's start off with the bad news. LSU obviously beat South Carolina, as we discussed. But I'm going to admit, I didn't think they would win that game even if Lenore Sellers was in the game. But I do think if Lenore Sellers plays, South Carolina wins that game. So I'm going to say I was right on the prediction because LSU won. But I think if all things are even, quarterback doesn't go down, I think we're talking South Carolina 3-0, 2-0 in the SEC right now. So I was wrong from that. Also thought Ole Miss would be a little bit more aggressive offensively. Again, I told you I took the team total 42.5 because Virginia only put up 30. They put 30 up against them. I thought Ole Miss would definitely score 2 more touchdowns than Virginia did against Wake Forest. And I went Virginia against Wake Forest. Just kind of seemed like Ole Miss kind of getting some guys back, but just didn't really want to just totally, I don't know, just didn't empty the playbook like I thought they would to try to make a statement. They still made a big statement, but nothing like I thought they would. So I was wrong on that. And then I thought Missouri would play better against Boston College, but when you go back and watch the film, that's the first time a lot of these guys had played together for the first time this season. You could tell they were working a lot of kinks out. Really, I'll be honest with you. I humbly say this. I wasn't wrong much this week. I was wrong a lot the week before. I had Kentucky beating South Carolina. Unfortunately, I had Mississippi State beating Arizona State. What the hell was I thinking there? I regretted that the minute I submitted that for the weekly picks that we do at the SEC Unfiltered channel with Chris and Cole. I immediately regretted that. But I really wasn't wrong much this week, folks. So where I was right, I said LSU would win some way, somehow. They across the board personnel, they're better wise. Team is usually the hungriest, the quietest all week. And think about the adversity they had to deal with. I mean, it wasn't Hurricane Katrina, but it was a hurricane that came into the area. They had to practice through that. Heard they practiced in the rain. Granted, the game wasn't as bad weather-wise as it was made out to be, but LSU had to find that win. That'd been an awful win for Brian Kelly. That was a must-win for him. Starting 1-2, still have Bama, Ole Miss, trips at Arkansas and A&M too. You couldn't start 1-2, 0-1. You had to have it. You found a way. Also said A&M would take advantage scheme-wise defensively against the right side of Florida's offensive line with Damian George and Brennan Crenshaw-Dixon, San Diego State transfer. They did. That was probably one of the easier bets of the week. I know a lot of people picked Florida, but again, you got to go with the biggest. It's about matchups. Matchups create the fight, guys. And A&M, Mike Elko, again, I always say it, he's never had a bad defense going back to his Bowling Green days. They're going to scheme people up. They're going to find that weakness out of the five on the offensive line. They found the right side. So I was right on that. I said Alabama would go separate themselves in Madison. That happened. Really not much to go brag about on that. I think a lot of people had that, felt comfortable. Once Bama won the middleweight, remember the last 4 minutes of the first half, first 4 minutes of the second half. Talk about that all the time. The middle 8 is where college football is won now. It's always been won in the NFL because those games are always close. But Bama double dipped. Wisconsin had the ball towards the end of the half, down 14-3, misses the field goal. Bama goes and scores. Jalen Milroe freaking fits it in like a glove, dropping it in the breadbasket to Ryan Williams, sets it up, then hits the corner out to Jeremy Bernard the very next play. Scores on 2 plays right for the half. Come out, score right off the bat, make it 28-3 after the Jam Miller runs. It was over. Once Bama went up 21-3 at half, they were open in the half to get the ball, double dipping, winning the middle 8. It was over. Called that. I said both Vanderbilt and Mississippi State were in for sleepy games. I didn't think they'd straight up both lose, but I said they were in for sleepy games. I think the Vandy Georgia State game was like a 10.5-point line, and I think Toledo was only getting 11.5. I said they were sleepy games. I'll admit I didn't think they'd both straight up lose, but they were sleepy games. Both ended up losing. So that's where I was right, where I was wrong. Week 3, again, where I was wrong. I think I think South Carolina wins that game. I think my prediction's probably wrong if Lenore Sellers doesn't get hurt, but you know what? It wasn't. But still, I can admit when I didn't have an inkling there. I think they win that game if Lenore Sellers doesn't go down. Thought Ole Miss would be a little bit more aggressive. They weren't. Missouri thought they'd play a little better against Boston College, give Bill O'Brien and them credit. But again, Missouri breaking in the full roster for the first time. Where I was right, LSU backed into a corner, had to get it done. They did. A&M taking advantage of Florida's porous right side of their offensive line. Bama dominating in Madison. And then both Vanderbilt and Mississippi State walking into sleeping Giants, sleeping matchups. Again, Mississippi State coming back from a West Coast trip where they probably didn't get back till 5 or 6 a.m. in Starkville that Sunday. Your body clock's not going in until Tuesday. You're facing probably the most consistent MAC team over the past 10 years in Jason Campbell and Toledo. Screamed upset. I didn't think it would be 41-17, though. I'll tell you that. Vanderbilt, total look-ahead game to Missouri this week. Had to make the trip to Atlanta to play Georgia State, who has numerous former SEC coaches. Del McGee's the head coach. Kevin Sherritt's the DC. He's been at Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama. Jim Chaney's been everywhere. Took it for granted. You got. Both ended up losing. Moving to. That was where I was wrong, where I was right, folks. Moving to the coordinators of the week. Got to go with Nick Sheridan and Kalen DeBoer. Really, let's give it to Nick Sheridan. 407 total yards. Jalen Milroe, 12 for 17, 196 yards, 3 touchdowns, 14 carries for 75 yards and 2 scores. Bama's ironing out their offense. We'll really see in 2 weeks when they face Georgia, but I think Georgia's interior can get got right now too. I think they can. I really think they can. They're beat up. Some of that's because they're injured. But you got to give Nick Sheridan credit. Last year with Tommy Rees, they didn't really want to utilize Jalen Milroe's strengths. And always give Kalen DeBoer and Nick Sheridan credit. They play to the strengths of their personnel. Remember, Michael Penix did not have great years after Kalen DeBoer left Indiana when he was the OC. He was always at his best with Kalen DeBoer. Kalen DeBoer is one of the best OCs in the country, folks. Love Bama's explosiveness. Now, they're a little boomer bust, but I think it's just kind of how they are. They're not going to go have 11, 12-play drives, be a phenomenal third down team. Because, again, Jalen Milroe doesn't turn the football over, but he will take some negative plays. But I think Nick Sheridan and them are, since Caden Proctor and Elijah Pritchett are back, they got that offensive line working. It's going to be a dangerous offense. And then on the defensive side, give it to Pete Golden. I kind of previewed that heading in to the week when I was talking about, or heading in when I was talking about the Ole Miss Wake Forest matchup. 6 points given up in Winston-Salem. Dave Clawson and them, usually a prideful program offensively. 46 yards rushing. Walter Nolan dominating. Wake was 4 for 17 on third down. They were 1 for 3 in red zone opportunities. Just a deep defensive unit for Pete Golden and the boys. Tip of the cap there to Pete Golden. Ole Miss looking really good on defense. I think their first legit test will be South Carolina in 2 weeks when they take the trip. Again, I know some people, I admit, I don't think South Carolina has much of a vertical passing game. I don't know how much we see Lenore Sellers this week against Akron. If it's Robbie Ashford against Ole Miss, it'll be similar to the stat line I just read you. Now, I don't think it'll be that because I don't think Lenore Sellers is that long-term. But still, Pete Golden and them defense flying under the radar. Everybody's talking about Jackson Dart and the big numbers they're putting up, Juice Wells, Jordan Watkins, Trey Harris. We're talking Henry Parrish, guys like that. Ole Miss's defense slowly sneaking under the radar. But those are the 2 coordinators of the week. Nick Sheridan in Alabama just putting on a clinic in Madison. Phenomenal job utilizing Jalen Milroe in between the tackles with that dominant interior front Bama has. And then Pete Golden on the defensive side of the ball. The Ole Miss defense slowly creeping under the radar. Everybody's talking about the points, drive for show, but you know what? That D's going to putt for dough, dog. Pete Golden and the boys playing really well. Playing really well. Let's go back to the chat real fast. Who else is in there? You're not liking the hoodie there, Chick Note? Wrong for the hoodie inside. Nah, it's starting to come that season now, brother. It's starting to come fall. It's a little hot outside here in Atlanta, but again, it's starting to become that season. You see a little more hoodie here on Dave Talks Ball. Remember, guys, this show's every Monday, 9 p.m. Every Monday and Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll recap the week on Monday, talk about where I was right, review the bads, talk about where games were won and lost. I wanted to bring the film in here, but again, they took our live feed off for using my YouTube TV recording. So I'm trying to talk to some video coordinators, get the film sent over. But again, those are hurdles as well. So I hate that. I did that last week. Hate that. But guys, remember the show every Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central, Mondays and Thursdays. But appreciate you listening there, Chinook. Gregory, again, appreciate you listening. Atmosphere should be electric in Norman Saturday night. The whole town is buzzing for this game. Yeah, I mean, there's storylines across the board in this game. I mean, Seth Luttrell, the offensive coordinator for Oklahoma, former player to Oklahoma, he was the fullback on the 2000 national championship team that beat Florida State when Heupel was the quarterback. A lot of storylines across the entire board. Brent Venables was the DC. There's a ton of storylines in this game across the board, folks. Richard, he's back, baby. My Arkansas brother. He says, I think Missouri gets very well on offense this week against Vanderbilt. They want to work out the long ball issues for A&M and College Station, so I expect 1 or 2 long TD throws in 40+. You're right. Brady Cook's been leaving some meat on the bone. If you listen to my show, I say that all the time for when you're not taking full advantage of something. In games against, like you said, Kyle Field at Texas A&M has a good defense. When they go to Bryant-Denny and face Alabama, when they play Oklahoma has a good defense, maybe even Arkansas, you can't leave points on the board. It's like I always say, it'd be like Steve Kerr drawing up a perfect play for Steph Curry in the corner, and you're just missing it. That would be my concern with Missouri so far. I think he can get it worked out. It's a timing thing, a comfortability thing. But in the first 3 weeks, Brady Cook's left some meat on the bone. You're 100% right there, Gregory. Oh, let's pull up the banner. But moving on along, chugging along, guys. Massive game on the Plains this week. How important is this game for Hugh Freeze this week? Very under the radar game this week on the Plains. We will be there. Chris Phillips and myself, SEC Unfiltered, will have boots on the ground in the Plains. So that's 50 miles from here. We got some tickets through Arkansas. Probably going to get some field passes through Auburn. They love us. Both teams love us here at the SEC Unfiltered channel. Barstool Tour is going to be there. I think Big Cat and them. Everybody's going to Norman, as they should. It's going to be a phenomenal game. But this trip just made a little bit more sense. Has a lot rolling. Has a lot on the line for both teams. Both teams, nobody wants to start 0-1 in conference play. Both teams would be 2-2 with a loss like this. Both teams, the loser of this, goals and aspirations heading into the season. Probably Arkansas trying just to get to 6. Auburn trying to get to 8, which I think was realistic, are probably out the window if you lose this game. I mean, it is. There's a lot of stake. And look, we basically know what it means for Sam Pittman in year 5. It's crap or get off the pot. You got to start winning football games. And this is a big one. Again, like I said, you lose this. I said going into the offseason in the summer, you had to win one of these first 2 road games, either at Oklahoma State, you let that one slip through after dominating the first half. You got to win this one in a very winnable game. And like I said, I think the wrong team's favored. I think Arkansas has shown more in the first 3 weeks. And look, for Hugh Freeze, it's a little different. We know what to expect from Sam Pittman, but you're heading into year 2 for Hugh Freeze, or you're in year 2, where traditionally that's a launch year for most teams. I mean, Urban Meyer won a national championship in year 2. Kirby Smart played for a national championship in year 2. Nick Saban won a national championship in year 2. Usually, I think Bob Stoops at Oklahoma took off year 2. Teams usually start to take that, and again, it's a different era of college football with the portal. But usually teams start to take on, launch their program in that year 2 season. You start 2-2, 0-1 in conference play, can't figure out the quarterback situation. You lose that momentum you built from a recruiting standpoint in the offseason. Not saying you can't get it back. I'm not fully saying it's going to happen. You're just putting it in jeopardy. Because I thought 8 wins, a 4-4 conference play finish this year was very realistic, especially when you factor in you get Kentucky and Vanderbilt this year. Vanderbilt's improved, but still, you get Vanderbilt at home, at the crib, you should win that game. Auburn's schedule, very manageable. You should not be losing to Cal at home year 2. No offense to Cal, but similar to how it was in the Kentucky-South Carolina game. I was much more disappointed in Auburn than I was impressed with Cal. If Auburn loses this game this week, the 8-win mark that I think Auburn had to have to show growth in year 2 under Hugh Freeze is probably out the door. You'd be looking at maybe you even get to 6. And again, I think Auburn's in that 5-6 win range right now. It's a massive game. Not only for Arkansas and Sam Pittman for obvious reasons, but Hugh Freeze in year 2. You start 2-2, 0-1 in league play, and everybody kind of thought you may roll 5-0 into Athens for your first road game after beating Cal, after beating Arkansas. You get Oklahoma at home next week. It could spell trouble. There's no telling what happens to that Oklahoma game if you lose this one. There's no telling. It's a big win. Hugh Freeze needs it more because I think Sam Pittman, we kind of know the storyline here. You lose this, what's the momentum you're building? And again, in college football now more than ever, you have to build internal momentum or kids start to tap out. It's just the society we live in now. The injured ankle, he could probably give it a go if we still had some stuff to play for. The guys aren't going to play hard in that perspective. They're going to sit in the training room and be like, I just don't feel up to it, coach. I'm not going to play. Saving himself, maybe entering the portal. It's just reality. We're going to call a spade on this show. That's the reality. You have to continue to build momentum within programs now because these kids don't have to stay now. They can leave. They're not just sitting there like, you know what? Let's keep fighting. Let's get better heading into next year because you know what? This team's not going to be here anymore. Now, you could say it even back in the day because you lost 25% of your team each year. It's not the case. You lose a lot more than that every year now. But it's almost a loser leave town must win for this. But really for Hugh Freeze to be a much more disappointing loss because that'd be your second home loss and you're 2-2, 0-1. In a year you were telling everybody it was going to be a little better and you've already made a quarterback change. So I think Hugh Freeze needs it a little more this week. And again, right now, I predicted it during our preview. I have Arkansas win this game. Wouldn't shock me if Arkansas win this game by double digits. Would not shock me if Arkansas win this game by double digits. Call me crazy. Call me crazy, folks, but massive game for Hugh Freeze. Robert Shear, very important game for Auburn because if they lose this week, they could easily lose the next 4. You're 100% right. They're away from Jordan Hare for 4 straight weeks. They get Oklahoma next week at home. Who knows how Oklahoma will be after that Tennessee game, but again, massive game. On to the gray. Are you fellas doing a Norman trip this year or a Red River shootout? I think Chris is thinking about going to Red River, but I think that's the same weekend as LSU Ole Miss. He's going every weekend. I'm going with him this week, though. So we'll be we'd love to check out Norman. We're going to try to get to a Sooner game, and I appreciate you listening to every show, man. You're one of the more loyal listeners to our channel and to Dave Talks Ball, man. I appreciate you, man. We'll have to meet up when we get to Norman. Yeah, that's really it right now. Let's review. We got 2 more things just want to talk about. Let's review the money-making weekend. We're not going to sugarcoat it, just like I'm calling these coaches and programs out. 5-7 this weekend. I had 12 good plays, felt good. We're now 14 for 21 on the year. But like I said, college football is as hard as it has ever been to predict. I mean, we're dealing with 18, 22-year-olds, predicting behavior, transfer portal, new coaches. We're 14-21, but we're going to get better. Give me 4 weeks to get film, figuring teams out. We improved this week. We were 3-7 the week before. But again, 5-7. Let's review it. The wins, I took Bama -7.5 in the first half. Covered that one with ease. Indiana -3 at UCLA. They hammered UCLA. Covered that one with ease. Oregon minus 13.5. Just kept betting on Oregon because I felt like they were due to play well. They won the Civil War pretty big. And then Texas UTSA. No, that one didn't stay. It was Mississippi State Toledo, stayed under 59. So those were the 5 wins. Oh, and UMass under 20.5 team total. I think they only scored 3 points. So I won those 5. Losses were Notre Dame, Purdue under 46.5. Notre Dame almost cleared that themselves. Missouri minus 16. We talked about that a little bit. Missouri had a chance to maybe go cover it backdoor, but again, that game didn't feel like a 16, 17-point game. It felt about right. I mean, Boston College was up most of that first half. I was wrong in that. Arkansas, I felt really good about this one, the minus 24 against UAB. Just no focus. Once I found out the defensive coordinator, Travis Williams, had his 4th kid this week and was not in the office much except at practice, that makes sense. And then Trey Biddy saying Arkansas's defensive players couldn't tell you what UAB's scheme was offensively or what players are standing out. It makes sense. I should have done my homework a little more on that one. Texas UTSA under 56.5. I should have won this one. They were running out the clock. Fumble, return for a touchdown to hit the over. I took the under. So I'm not pissed about that. I would bet that one again. Mississippi State Toledo, I won. Auburn first half over 23.5. Yeah, I would probably, what was that score again at half? I'm rolling it back up. What was the score at half? I'd probably bet that one again. I mean, I'll be honest. They had 17 points at half. They're up 17-10. We weren't all super close, but still, I'd probably take that again. Ole Miss over 43.5. They barely just missed it. Would they finalize with 41.5? Would they end up having? Where is it? Where's my score on my Excel sheet? Here we go. 40. Just missed it. I'd probably bet that again as well, folks. And so I'm not disappointed in that one. And then Air Force. I've been fading Baylor all year with Dave Aranda. I think they're done. You hire a former Big 12 coach, Texas State coach, Jake Spaff, talks to your OC. It's just the writings on the wall. They were giving Air Force 17.5. Baylor blew them out. So didn't win that one. We were 5-7 in a 12-game slate. Again, for the season, folks, 14-21. Week 4 is here, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. We're improving. We're going to get this to above 500 before it's over. And again, if you're 55% better, they call that success. We're only getting better. It's harder than ever to predict college football. Not making excuses, just telling you, talking to people with inside the program. Florida thought they felt good about beating A&M last week when I talked to them. When I talked to A&M, they thought Connor Wigman was starting up till Saturday morning when his shoulder, and he woke up even more sore. So these teams don't even know what to expect week to week. So it's tough to predict the first 4 weeks, but I'm starting to get a feel. For most of these teams, folks. Let me preview this week's slate real fast before we get into the final comments. Again, guys, appreciate you listening. Go like, subscribe, hit that notification bell on all SEC Unfiltered platform on social media, Twitter, X, Facebook, Instagram. Obviously, give us the follow on YouTube. Again, guys, you got life, you got job, kids, pets, animals, whatever. You can't keep track of what we're doing here. But if you hit that link, if you hit that notification bell, we can notify you when we post stuff. But for this week, we got Florida at Mississippi State, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Zone game on ESPN. Let me pull up some lines for y'all, too, just so we can get this out here as well. I just want to throw these lines out here. All right, here we go. So, again, Florida in that game. Florida favored by 6 at Davis-Wade Stadium. Next game we got, that'll be a 12:45 Eastern Standard Time Zone SEC Network kick. Ohio at Kentucky. The Bobcats coming at 2-1. Can I get a line for that game for you against Kentucky? Yep, Kentucky favored by 15 heading into this one. UCLA at LSU. I think this is where SEC Nation is, right? 2:30 or 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 Central on ABC. Current line for that one, LSU is favored by 21 heading into that one this week. Arkansas and Auburn will be there. I told you that one right now as we check right now. Auburn favored by, it's up to 4. Again, I think they're all teams favored. Arkansas is getting 4. Auburn favored by 4. Again, must win, I think, for both these teams to reach their goals and aspirations. Vanderbilt at Missouri. We thought this could be a game 1 SEC showdown, Pavia Mania. Dropped Georgia State. That doesn't happen. What do we got the line on that one? Vandy, Missouri. Missouri's favored by 19. So they're getting Vanderbilt's favored by 19 at Missouri. Bowling Green at Texas A&M. A&M can't be just fat and happy after the win against Florida, ending the streak of SEC road trips. Again, Bowling Green took Penn State early in the season to the wire, but A&M is favored by 22 in that one. That would kick off at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. The big one, College Game Day. Fowler Herbstreit will be there, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Josh Heupel returns to Oklahoma. Currently, right now, Tennessee is favored by 6. Woo! Where do we start with this one, guys? Again, feels like a real WrestleMania type hype. Probably a top 3 SEC game. I don't know if it's going to be one of those drunk games. It feels like the drunk game, like South Carolina LSU this past week is going to be the one that I'm going to be at. Auburn, Arkansas, I could go all over the place. This one's going to be a good game. I think the key, I'm fired up for the chess match of Brent Venables, Zach Alley, how they're going to attack Nico and them. Because, again, I think this game, I love the play. I'd assume probably the first half lines, Oklahoma's getting, 3.5, 3. I kind of like that. I think it's going to be a close game in the first half. But I think the game, not going to give you a prediction. I think where it'll be won, though, is how does Oklahoma's offensive line hold up to a Tennessee defensive front? That's probably the best defensive front depth-wise they have, especially on the defensive line. This is probably mid-2000s, 2005, 2006, when Philip Fulmer was there. I mean, this year you got James Pierce, arguably the best defensive player in the league, heading in. Joshua Joseph's his buddies on the other side. You got big Amari Thomas, Amar Norman Lott, Bryson Eason, Simmons. They're just deep across the board. That's where it's going to be won. The fun matchup is going to be Brent Venables throwing the kitchen sink at Nico Iamaleava in his first true road game. Remember, they played NC State and Charlotte. He played Iowa in a bowl game, all at neutral sites. This is his first true road start. I think he's going to see more defensive football, more simulated pressures than he's ever seen in his life. So I think he does get off to a slow start here. I do. The running game, Dylan Sampson, look out for him as well. If I'm Oklahoma offensively, I'm taking shots at that Tennessee secondary. I think it's improved, but how improved? It wasn't tested against NC State and Grayson McCall because you know what? Like I said, if Tennessee got up 2 or 3 scores in that game, it was over. Grayson McCall cannot stretch the field. He can't. So I think it's improved. I like Jermod McCoy, the Oregon State transfer Tennessee brought in the back end. But how improved is Tennessee's secondary? We don't know. It's improved, but how improved? Can they take advantage, especially if Oklahoma brings back some guys like Nick Anderson and some other guys who've been banged up on the outside, maybe Jalil Farouk. I don't know. Guys like that who could play and help outside of Deion Burks, who's been kind of the one-man show right now. Also factor in Bauer Sharp as well at the tight end spot potentially as well. Let's pull up. Sorry, I put massive game. Looking ahead to week 4. Those banners, man. When you're the producer and talking to you get lost times. I got to get better about that. And I will be better for you people for that. What other game we got? Akron at South Carolina. I talked about that one. A little bit of a sleepy hangover game, but again, Akron's not very good. For SEC fans, you'll recognize this name. Joe Moorhead, former Mississippi State coach for 2 years in 2018 and 19, right after Mullen left. He's the head man. He's the head zip for the Akron Zips. South Carolina, it's easy to say, 24-hour rule, get over that one, but man, should have won that game. Should have won that game, and you get Ole Miss next week. Probably a sloppy game. Current line right now, South Carolina's favored by 27. I don't think they cover that. I don't think they cover that. I think it's a sleepy game. It's never in doubt, but it should be a slot fest. I think in these games like UAB, Akron, games like this, you don't take a lot from them. Just get out of there healthy, get into the next game. And then finally, Georgia Southern at Ole Miss. Currently, Ole Miss favored by 30 against Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern played 2-1 rolling in. They're only lost to Boise week 1. They're a solid football team, but Ole Miss should handle this before they open up SEC play against South Carolina. Texas plays ULM. Currently, Texas is a 42-point favorite over ULM. Expect to see Arch Manning, a lot of the freshmen. Does Wingo keep getting catches? Let's see. Colin Simmons, want to see him on the defensive side of the ball. I think we got some. I think you see a lot of young cats in this Texas ULM game. I really do. I think you see Ryan Wingo go big again. I think defensively, like I mentioned, Colin Simmons. I think you'll see Jarrett Gibson continue to get carries at the running back spot. Trey Owens, the third string quarterback, is probably going to come in. He played a little bit last week, but I think they kind of get it over with. ULM's improved, but still, Texas is going to handle business here. I don't know about covering the 40. I hadn't really dug that deep into it, or the 42, but I do like Texas winning this football game. And Alabama and Georgia are both on the bye before their big showdown next week. That, again, like I said, presidential candidate, former president Donald Trump will be in the house for that one. But that's just looking ahead. We'll preview these matchups on Thursdays. But before we get out of here, let's get to the chat one more time. What kind of statement says, does a win for Oklahoma make? What kind of statement does an Oklahoma win make on Saturday? That's a massive statement. That'd be the biggest win at Memorial in a long time. Tennessee's a legit playoff. They're a playoff team to me and could be a national title contender if they can get some things figured out. But if I'm Oklahoma, I go and I'm at least jumping in the water and testing that secondary. I want to know if it's good. It may be good. It may be good. I'm not saying it's not good, Tennessee fans. It may be good. I just want to see. I don't think it's been tested. I expect him to get the ball out of Jackson Arnold's hands quick, but that game's going to come down to Jackson Arnold. I trust Zach Alley and Brent Venables' defense to throw a lot at Nico. Again, Nico hasn't really even been the story. For Tennessee, it's been special teams, defense, and the run game. What else we got here? Daniel Gregory, appreciate you listening. He said, so much depth along the line of scrimmage, and OU has a lot of trouble blocking. It's recipe for disaster for OU. Tennessee 38-13. It could get ugly. If anybody were to blow someone out, I think it's definitely Tennessee. I just think it's going to be a lot for Nico in his first true road start. It's going to be probably one of the more raucous environments any Tennessee player has played in while being a Tennessee Volunteer. It's going to be a phenomenal atmosphere. Make a movie. I'm jealous we're not going, but I'm fired up for going to Jordan-Hare. We're going to the Plains for, I think, one of the more underrated games in college football on Saturday, especially in the SEC. So I said, loser leave town. But I appreciate you listening, Greg. Richard, back for more, baby. Here's my outlandish pick. I don't think Texas OU is close. I think Tennessee gets up early and fans get quiet. Tennessee wins by over 14. Like I mentioned, if somebody was going to blow somebody out, I could see that. Daniel Gregory, again, go Big Orange. So much depth in the D-line for Tennessee, and OU's O-line is trash. Tennessee absolutely smokes Jackson Arnold at least 5 times. Tennessee 38-13. Richard says he's coming back next week if that doesn't happen. He's going to eat his crow. But, guys, I appreciate you listening. We've gone an hour and 20 minutes, a little longer than I want. But, again, we got the Monday review. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I have. Guys, we talked about a lot. We covered a lot. We talked about the good, the bad, where I was right, where I was wrong. We talked about, is there a quarterback competition in Austin? I don't think there is. You don't lose a job off injury in this situation. Again, Arch Manning brings a different dynamic, higher ceiling than Quinn Ewers, but also Sark doesn't really want to run quarterback. So I think that takes it off. Quinn Ewers has played in big games. He's seen it all. You're going to go back to him when he's healthy. Now, I do think on the other side, I think Reed is a better fit than Connor Wigman. I think Marcel Reed is a better fit in Colin Klein's system than Connor Wigman. Tell me I'm wrong. That doesn't mean Marcel Reed's the better quarterback overall. I would take Connor Wigman if you picked one. I just think he's a better fit in this specific system. I'd roll with Marcel Reed. Mike Elko has not tipped his hand yet. What else did we review here this weekend? We reviewed the week it was, the big games where I was right and wrong. I was wrong. I thought LSU. I didn't think South Carolina, even with Lenore Sellers, would win this game. If Lenore Sellers plays, they win. Ole Miss thought they'd be a little bit more aggressive. They weren't. Missouri would play better against Boston College. And I really went wrong a lot this week, guys. Where I was right. LSU somehow, some way gets a win. A&M would dominate on the line of scrimmage on defense, take advantage of that right side of Florida's offensive line. Thought Bama would separate in Madison. And I thought Vandy and Mississippi State were in for dogfight. Didn't think they'd straight up lose, but they did. Coordinators of the week, congrats to Nick Sheridan and Pete Golden for being the two coordinators from an offensive and defensive representative standpoint on Dave Talks Ball Show. Congratulations, fellas. And then how important is this game for Hugh Freeze? Obviously, we know for Sam Pittman it's important. Year 5, he's got to collect wins. For Hugh Freeze, you could be fumbling a ton of momentum if you start off 2-2, 0-1, and then depending what Oklahoma does when they're coming into town next week, and then you're on the road for a week straight or a month straight. Missouri, Kentucky, and Georgia. It could be rough for Hugh Freeze and the boys. They'll be in that 5-6 win range if they were to lose this week. You're giving up a lot of that recruiting momentum. Massive game for Hugh Freeze at home against Arkansas. Money-making weekend review. We'll get better. Season goes on. It's hard to predict college football now. But guys, I appreciate you joining us. I appreciate you joining us on this episode of Dave Talks Ball. I will see y'all on Thursday. But before I see y'all on Thursday, I want to see those. I want to go see those subscriptions on our YouTube channel go up, guys. Let's go. Let's go. Go like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any content from myself, Cole Thompson, Chris Phillips, any of the guys from the SEC Unfiltered family. Again, guys, I appreciate you joining us. You have a phenomenal rest of your week. Can't wait to see you on Thursday.